I am Amy Wilkinson. I'm the founder and CEO of Ingenuity. I am also on faculty at Stanford in the Graduate School of Business, where I focus on entrepreneurship and human-centered AI. So I am delighted to be with Andrew Scheuermann, and he is the founder and CEO of Arch Systems, which is AI for manufacturing. So Andrew, tell us, what does that mean?
Yeah. So we go into a factory and we make a digital twin of all the data, the machines, the systems, and that allows an agent to do work alongside the people in the factory, like
Okay.
planning work, quality work, maintenance work. This is in short supply today.
All right. And so give us some examples of customers and what that digital twin really looks like.
Yeah. So our biggest customer segment are what are called the contract manufacturers. They're Flex, Jabil, Sanmina. They actually build everything for Apple, Dell,
Okay.
Cisco. So you know those brand names well, and they build them. So they have tons of factories. We also work with some brands people might know, like Honeywell and BAE Systems, folks that have factories.
Sure.
And again, we come in and we basically augment their workforce to help them deliver great products.
Okay. So when you augment the workforce and you have the digital twin, give us a little more granular detail.
Yeah.
Like what happens next? You have a digital twin.
Yeah.
Honeywell is working with you. What happens?
Well, if we take one step back, in just 4 years, 2030, is estimated in the US, for example, to be a 2 million worker shortage in manufacturing. So a lot of times people say manufacturing is going to take all the jobs, but
Right.
actually there's currently a shortage of expert labor. And so what we're doing, the digital twin is a means to the end. It's allowing that agent to work. Like, because, a human doesn't have time to look at a whole digital twin, but an agent, an AI
Right.
agent, needs data to figure out what to do.
Sure.
What we want it to do is help you make a better plan, ship your product on time, or figure out why this machine keeps breaking or why the defect is happening. That's if the factory could just hire more experts, the people that, listen and then just know how to kick it in the right place,
Right.
they would do that. But that's the kind of talent we don't have anymore, and it is actually going down.
Okay. So you already sort of teed up this, but what about AI taking jobs away from manufacturing? Because we do hear that. It's kind of like out there as a scary idea.
I think
How do you respond to that?
people are scared about jobs going away across the whole economy. And there's a lot of narrative right now, which I think is accurate. We've been hearing this here at Davos, that young employees are having a hard time getting their first job, people out of school.
Right.
In manufacturing, the crisis is with expert labor, and there are not enough people to fill those jobs. So if we were building agents that took away that kind of junior job, I think we might be a part of that trend, which is happening. But our specific role is trying to augment, extend the expert labor that's really missing.
Okay.
So if you look really long term, I do think these agents can do a third, a half of all the work in the factory. Historically, though, the number of jobs in manufacturing has increased almost 500 million today of the global population. It's more than 5%. It's going up, but the number of jobs per factory, of course, goes down. We're able to do more for less people.
Okay. So you're really on the cutting edge of technology with this. Can you tell us what's working really well, but then also maybe where there's some glitches or where you've had some setbacks and how you've faced that?
Totally fair question. Yeah, there's a lot of hype, and everyone has to kind of project what can be done. And in our space, especially, I won't name the specific big companies that do it, but there's a number of them just kind of total marketing, and that's their strategy. What does work, the key thing we call it guided action. So we're not having an agent just completely automate a whole job. For example, be the planner, iterate the plan, the factory just reschedules and no one even looks at it. We don't do that today.
Okay.
But we do these guided actions. So in other words, we detect that the plan is going to miss. We go ahead and have AI look at everything, come up with a new version of the plan, and share it to the planner. And the planner decides that makes sense, or maybe they tweak it a bit and then they put it into the flow. It increases their mean time to the right resolution.
Okay. So I know that you have a PhD out of Stanford, right, in semiconductor electronics. Am I right there? Can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure, yeah. I did a PhD in Paul McIntyre's group at Stanford. We did semiconductor chips. So partially how that relates to Arch was in my research, I built semiconductor machines. So I kind of had my head in these equipment, and I dealt with maintenance issues and changing pumps and whatever. But what I really wanted to be doing was focusing on the parameters and the quality to make a record-breaking chip. And I could talk more about that. I had a record photoanode efficiency, but some of that just background and pain that translated into Arch was like, in the lab is different than the factory, but something that's shared about that is decreasing the non-value work, like maintenance that just brings lines down, to be able to bring more intelligence into how you actually build a medical device, a key piece of electronics in a defense application, right? An AI server as fast as possible.
So out of that PhD and all of that work, like what were the next steps? I think you've also been in Africa, right?
Yeah. That's a kind of an interesting part of the story. Yeah, we kind of stepped aside and worked on a nonprofit called Well Done. We got a grant from the World Bank to monitor wells in Tanzania that is for drinking water. And so the connection to the factory is that's also kind of like a machine, a well, and you're monitoring if it's up and down and if it needs maintenance so that people can get drinking water. But that came from a passion that we have, along with some of the founders of this nonprofit, myself, Tim, and others working together. And we got that World Bank grant. And we actually explored building more technology on wells. And as we were looking for a for-profit that could pair with the nonprofit, this nonprofit exists. It still does work, and it owns some of our company. We donate to it.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
We found our way to factories as both my background and my co-founder's background in electronics, an area we could really scale for-profit impact alongside an area that we think is one of the most important nonprofit areas, which is access to water.
Okay. So, my focus at Stanford Business School is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested in how people find co-founders and how they build teams. So can you give us a little background there?
I mean, I'd like to ask you more about that and overall, because I feel like, I don't know if mine's stereotypical or not, but Tim and I were kind of each other's first friends at Stanford in the PhD program. We lived together in a basement. Yeah, he's a theoretician. I'm an experimentalist. So we weren't maybe as broad as like engineering and MBA, but we were the two sides of engineering. And when he was working on those wells in Tanzania before I was, and we got excited about collaborating and really saw that one of us, we both had shared technical knowledge, but he had this deep systems thinking about how to build a lasting product. And I had vision about kind of where things were going and how we could bring customers and investors to the fore. And so we put together some of those skills. And made a lot of mistakes along the way, but eventually.
How about doing the business side of this? Because both of you are pretty deep on the research side, right?
Yeah.
So how did you stand up a company? What were the kind of early steps there?
I mean, probably some technical founders can relate to this. You kind of look at each other and you're like, which of us is more technical? And that's my co-founder, Tim. And it goes like, I'll take the business, right? The fact that I'm quite technical, I think helps because AI is a very technical field.
Sure.
But I did a degree in chemistry and economics. I was always a bit of a talker technical person and at least
that's a benefit. That's great.
I spent a lot of time at the School of Business trying to get mentorship and rub shoulders with folks, and I helped build a startup accelerator called StartX, and that was another way that I just kind of put myself in places around entrepreneurs to kind of suck it in.
Right.
So that was how I tried to fill my own gap. But at the end of the day, yeah, I took the business side and the CEO. We worked together tightly as his co-founders. Recently, we brought on one of our colleagues to become a COO now, and we're about 100 people at this point. So we've gotten through some bumps, and I think quite impressive at this point.
So 100 people, that's pretty good. And how long have you been in the marketplace?
So that nonprofit phase was about 3 years, and we've been doing manufacturing AI for 7 years now.
Wonderful. Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay, take us to a couple more examples of what you do with clients, because there are different sort of tools or different functionalities, right?
Yeah. So talked about planning a bit. I'll talk about quality. So imagine, let's go to medical. So in the medical field, in a lot of areas, you can make a mistake in the factory and you repair it. And that takes a little extra time, but the cost, if labor is low cost, which is when you move factories out of the US, is not that big of a deal. In medical, a lot of times you have to throw away everything if you make a mistake. It's not safe. It's going to go in somebody's bodies, right? Imagine it's a pacemaker, GLP-1 pens, glucose monitors. So any mistake along the factory line, you catch it at the end, the whole thing goes to waste. And then if you've been in hospitals, they get shipped and then they open the bag and they throw them away again. The amount of waste in that supply chain is just incredible. So a problem that's worth a lot of money and I think is impactful is using AI agents to detect quality and go through the chain of all this data and find a root cause. Like what's really causing these quality problems? Again, imagine a factory could just hire 10 more amazing experts and they could just spend their time digging through the data, find these root causes, and I've got it. That's the agent's job. So that the people that are working in the factory are just given these guided actions. If you just went back to machine 3 and tweaked its recipe, right? If you changed this particularly problematic material, maybe switch that source, suddenly you increase the yield. It's, again, big cost savings and important part of a key supply chain, right?
That's wonderful. So give us another example of a different sector.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go with something totally different. Let's go with steel.
Okay.
So we've been working in steel lately on an interesting one. They bring these sheets of steel into these acid baths in order to what's called pickling it. It's a processing to make it good for all kinds of applications. Well, sometimes they run out of a roll, they put on a next roll. If you do that too slowly, the steel stays in the acid too long and you waste it. Another waste problem, but totally different type of mechanism than, say, a med device pen that got a bad material, but that related, right? And so our AI agent in this case's job is to look through this massive sensor data and decide, why did it take so long to put the next roll on? And we ended up just over pickling it.
That's wonderful. So big manufacturing, what about smaller, medium-sized manufacturing? Are your clients all in different sort of sizes? Or
actually, we are mainly in the tier 1, in the large enterprise.
Okay.
And that's an interesting question, because you would say, I think the low mid-tiers need this the most. And actually, it's more common for a newer company to work with mid-tiers, right? The reality is you need an upgraded factory with data to power an agent. The more data, the more it can do. And so for that reason, the tier 1 factories that have been able to invest in more automation and equipment have the deepest pools of data by far to allow these agents to work. So we have entirely gone to market in tier 1s. However, the good news is with, in some cases, we're very careful with private data, like defense. We did not transfer any data from one defense customer to another. But in our non-defense segments, we typically have a right to pull anonymized and aggregated data, which means we are typically able to bring lessons, let's say this medical device example, down to a smaller medical device manufacturer after we've at least first had some big customers to begin with.
Okay, so just give us a little bit of a range. So you said medical devices, defense, steel.
Yeah.
What other sectors are you covering?
Yeah, so our top is core electronics, circuit boards and chips. Our second is automotive. Third is aerospace and defense, and the fourth is life sciences.
Okay.
And then steel is an example of that long tail of interesting things that we're looking to expand into.
Okay. So how about 2026? So we're right at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
What is this year going to look like for Arch?
It's more scale. We've been round doubling every year in size and active users and data and revenue. So we're growing more, growing our team, growing our customer base. This year, some of the breakthroughs with AI, one of the things we announced last year was that our AI agents could look at the screens in the factory like a person. So they would just use data 2 years ago, like some of the sensor data. Then they started looking at screens like a person does. Behind the scenes, we're like screenshotting them all off into a prompt. But it means like just like the person would click through the charts, this year the agents are more interrogating the internal software themselves. So we're kind of stepping with how smart the agents are, how much they can do.
And they keep getting smarter, right?
They keep getting smarter.
Right.
And the good thing about a business like ours is we're not swept away. We bring that directly to the factories, because I like to say, like, if like our thing was a body, we're actually all the data and the memory and the nervous system, and we just do brain surgery with Anthropic or OpenAI's latest brain. Those things are crazy. They're going so fast.
Right.
We swap them out. And so their latest advances are coming in with us. And for us, besides that, it's partnerships in more industries, and trying to build more of an end-to-end solution. So in applied areas like factories, I imagine it's the same in supply chains, grocery stores. Customers just want the whole job done. They don't want one piece of infrastructure. So the challenge for us is they say, can you do even more? Can you not just create the ticket? Can you go ahead and fix the machine? Can you do a compliance report, but even submit it to that third-party agency, not just write it?
Right.
And those are challenges that we're trying to take on.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that. What are the customers asking for? So once you get in there, I assume they have more and more and more asks, like you just,
Yeah. They tend to start it, I gave that steel example. I gave a circuit board example. They tend to start it on one process. So one thing they'll ask for is more processes for an end-to-end, like not just the circuit board or the plastic box, but the whole medical device. And then they ask for more of the use cases. Maybe we're helping them on quality, but they say, well, I've also got planners. I've also got maintenance. They don't want to end up with 3-4 different agent platforms, and then I got to get those to talk. So it's really about trying to have a complete end-to-end platform that solves these types of labor challenges for them.
Okay, and how long do you work with a company? Do you set this up and then leave, or do you set this up and it's a subscription, or how does that business model work?
It is a continuous collaboration. So our core pricing model is usage-based. So how many assets, like processes or skills, are you using us on? We actually have some customers that we even engage on an outcome base. So we're literally an extension of the team.
Okay.
And it's kind of a coming together of traditional SaaS and consulting in a way, because the agent has a different shape, right? It works with you. And our customers do expect us to be continually integrating it further, adding new skills to it.
Just keeps getting smarter.
It has to keep getting smarter. If we didn't do it, someone else should take our spot, right? So it's our duty, it's our job to make them smarter and smarter and better serve our customers.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. It's Andrew Scheuermann and Arch Systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.